With the new X series of scratch-offs from the New York Lottery, you can multiply your winnings up to 100 times. The X series from the New York Lottery. It's a better way to multiply. You must be 18 years or older to purchase. Please play responsibly. On this week's episode, I'm joined by guest host and Bills legend, Eric Wood. We have another Bills legend, CJ Spiller, on with us, who currently is Clemson's running backs coach. We dive into the Travis Etienne hype and if he could be on the table for the Bills at number 30. CJ and Eric relive the night they got drafted and playing together on the Bills. Eric tells us one thing you shouldn't wear on the day you fly out to meet set new team you get drafted by. The two also share why a crowded running back room full of studs isn't a bad thing. All that and more on Bills Pod Squad, which starts right now. Welcome into this week's episode of Bills Pod Squad presented by the New York Lottery. Maddy Glab here as your host, and I'm joined by guest host, Bills legend Eric Wood. You can see him everywhere on Buffalo Bills platforms as well, as you guys already know. And today's podcast, we have another guest, another Bills legend, full of Bills legends this week. He's the current Clemson running backs coach, CJ Spiller. Guys, thank you so much for being on with us today. We're just a couple weeks away from the NFL draft, and we wanted to get you both on to talk about just that, some draft memories and a lot more. I want to hear some good stories because you guys played together on the Buffalo Bills, so hope we can get into some of that as well. But first, I just want to know what you both have been up to lately. CJ, we'll start with you. I mean, it's a busy time right now being a college football coach. You guys just checked off pro day off of things going on. And I'm sure right now you have a bunch of prospects, a bunch of now former Clemson football players in your weight room working out and getting ready for the NFL draft that begins on April 29th. So tell us what you've been up to lately and how this month and last month has probably been a whirlwind for you too.
Yeah, it has. And thank you, Maddy. It's been crazy. We actually just wrapped up our spring practice here. We had our spring game about 2 weeks ago. So spring ball for us just wrapped up. So it was, practice, meetings, just trying to find ways to get better as an offensive unit and obviously as a team. So it was an evaluation period for me, obviously coming in new, just meeting the guys, trying to build around them, getting to know them, letting them get to know me. So it's been I guess you say a learning curve for me, probably compared to some of the guys that's been on the staff from previous years. But it's been fun. It's been exciting. It's a new opportunity, a new challenge, and to be able to do this here at my alma mater here at Clemson, it truly is a dream come true. Something that I don't take lightly, and something that I'm very appreciative of, and looking forward to it. And like you said, we got some of our former guys that's getting ready for the draft, so they in and out of the building, training. Doing all their things that they need to do to get ready to make this next step of their career in their life. So we're excited about that opportunity. So it's been a fun spring here in Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, and a late congratulations to you. I know you accepted that position to be the running backs coach for Clemson this year. I know last year you were still working with the program in Clemson. So what a cool opportunity to be able to be a position coach for the school you played for collegiately. I think that's so cool and probably so awesome to just be back and be helping guys who were in the same position that you were in when you were in college. Eric, you decided to go the route of playing golf and being on TV talking about football. So what have you been up to lately? I know you just came back from a nice golf trip, but I'm sure you're also knee deep in getting ready for the NFL draft. Certainly a lot of prospects to study up on and a lot of ACC guys too that could be coming out, heading to new teams and heading to a career in the NFL in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, one of the beauties of not being in coaching and being in broadcasting, you get to be around football, but you truly get an off season. So I have had a few family vacations, some golf trips and whatnot. And during COVID times, these golf trips are a little friendlier than most vacations because you kind of isolate with a group of 4 people and stay at a cottage at a golf course. So that's a little bit better, but I get to enjoy a little bit of the downtime, but also I'm working on my podcast, What's Next with Eric Wood. And then also through this time, we have the FCS playoffs coming up through ESPN. And then we're covering spring games. So I was supposed to be at Pitt this weekend. I'm now going to be at Pitt next week, covering their team. I got to call 3 of their games this week, this year. So it'd be a little bit easier prep on that end. I covered University of Louisville's pro day a couple weeks ago, and I live in Louisville majority of the time now. So that's an easy travel day. CJ, what was it like getting into coaching this past year or so and dealing with those hours? Because as a player, we would all leave the facility and the coaches are still there for 4 or 5 hours each night. What's that transition been like?
It's actually been, I ain't gonna want to say easier, but it was very helpful that I was able to be on staff last year as an unpaid grad assistant. So I was used to the hours, being up here early, staying late. So, I was telling somebody, I think that transition part was a lot easier compared to if I would have just not came in and didn't really understand the hours. Cause like you said, as a player, you come in, you go to practice, you might do some treatment here, and then you're gone. Compared to these coaches, now, you come in early and you're leaving late because you're game planning, you're doing over scripts, you're correcting practices. So it was I think that transition was a whole lot smoother for me, considering that I was on the staff the previous year and able to go through that part. But it was still a learning curve, just trying to learn the ins and outs of everything, how to, get a meeting going, how to set your, what drills you want to do each and every day, the reps, how many reps each guy's going to take. So, that was probably a little more tougher than just, the hours itself.
CJ, was that something you wanted to do? You knew you wanted to be a football coach after you were done with your NFL career? I think it's so interesting how former NFL players choose, their next career. Eric, you went into the broadcast world and have had a lot of success in that. CJ, you're coaching at Clemson, one of the biggest college football schools to play for currently. So did you know immediately, like, hey, this is the route that I wanted to take? Or was it something that kind of happened by chance, maybe an opportunity that came up?
Well, even while I was playing, I was able to volunteer and help this local high school with their track program called Liberty. So I was responsible for the sprinters, and I think that kind of gave me that itch. So I was doing that for like the last 3 or 4 years. And then, me and Coach Winnie, we always just had, casual conversations over the years, like, hey, whenever you're done playing, if you ever want to get into this profession, just let me know, and, I can walk you through those steps. So, when that time came, and I told him that I'm gonna pursue my master's. He just happened to have a spot and told me that, hey, just come and join the staff, see how you like it, see if it's something that you truly want to do, and if it is, we'll just go from there. Like for me, I was able to come on last year and, like I say, go through that whole transition as as an undergrad assistant, and kind of get the backgrounds of what it takes to be a coach. I think that kind of gave me okay, this is truly something that I truly want to do. So I would say it goes all the way back to me just helping over at a local high school. Just really, like you said earlier in the podcast, is just wanting just to give back, share my experiences, my knowledge that I've been able to gain over the course of my life, and just really, just let these young kids know that there's more out there to life if you just apply all the things that you need to be successful.
That's awesome. And I think so many people decide to do that because they want to give back. And there's so many college athletes that I've talked to that just look up to their coaches, and their coaches are the ones who have helped inspire them in so many different ways. I was reading on your bio, and Dabo calls you one of the greatest ambassadors for the Clemson program. So kudos to you for Dabo being able to say something like that high type of, just it's obvious that he really likes you. So that's awesome to hear that someone like that was able to help you in getting the position that you're currently in. Eric, did you ever think about going the coaching route once you got out of the NFL, or were you kind of like, all right, I'm good here, but I want to try the broadcasting route? That seems like a good route, because you go from being an NFL player, which takes up so much of your time, and then you go into being a college football coach, or go into, I don't know, maybe working in the front office for an NFL team. And it's not like you have any more time. I guess in my opinion, it's like you're going from something that takes up all your time to going to something else that takes up all of your time. So did you ever think about wanting to be a coach, or were you like, nah, I'll try something else?
No, I mean, coaching is something that I'm naturally drawn to. I loved being a leader within a football team and being around a team. And one of the things I miss so much on the broadcast side of things is, even though I'm calling games from a Buffalo Bills perspective, and even though it's a challenge each week and you're competitive with your ESPN broadcast, I'm not a part of the team. There's like, after the game, I'm not in a locker room. And I'm not saying I want to go join in the Bills locker room celebrations, because I hadn't earned that. But each week I do feel that pull to, ooh, if I would have just put in the investment to put in those hours, I could be celebrating with them and enjoying that. And even in defeat, I don't feel the defeat. And that emotion is what makes football at such a high level so appealing to me. But for right now, at the point, the way my career ended and us transitioning back to Louisville, having a 3 and a 5-year-old at home, for me, I just think it'd be a selfish decision on my end because we would likely have to uproot CJ. So fortunate to be able to be coaching at Clemson where he had been making a home. For me, unless it was the University of Louisville, which it's not like there's a job offer sitting out there, we would likely be moving our family. And I just transitioned them back to Buffalo. So that's where the broadcast side allows me to keep my foot in the door, but not have to do the coaching side. And one thing I wanted to ask you, CJ, you mentioned splitting up the reps, and we're going to use this as a time to be able to transition into some of the Clemson pro prospects. But when you have so many NFL caliber players in this day and age of everybody wants to transfer. If I can't get on the field, I'm going to transfer because I had all these offers and I can go somewhere else. How tough is it to manage those reps? And maybe a little easier in your room because you had such an established starter in Travis Etienne. But I'd imagine at a place like Clemson, which has a top 5 recruiting class each of the last 4 years, that it's tough managing that talent.
Yeah, it is tough managing the talent, but I mean, like you said, as a coach, I mean, you just have to do what's best for the group, and I mean, you just let the competition plays itself out. I know that's a cliche saying, and coaches always say that, hey, it'll play itself out, and and then when you get on this side, it truly does plays itself out, and and you don't want guys to leave your program because you didn't sign them to come here and then all of a sudden leave, but for some circumstances are just uncontrollable, and different guys leave for different reasons. I always was a guy, hey, wherever you go, you got to compete. You can go to Clemson, to Alabama, wherever, you still gonna have to compete. It ain't like you just you transfer, they just gonna give you the job, because when you transfer, you go into a whole new situation where guys that have probably been in that system 3-4 years. Now you having to compete with them. You're already behind because now you got to learn a new playbook. So to me, why would I want to spend that type of energy instead of and just stay where I'm at and just compete for a job or what the case may be. But like I say, different guys have different circumstances, and trust me, I truly understand that. But I always been the one that, hey, if you're going to be a competitor, you got to compete wherever you go, and don't let competition shy you away from that.
I mean, you talk about competing at like the highest level, and pro day is one of those opportunities to be able to put everything you have worked for since your college football season ended. You put it on tape and you put it out in front of these scouts who are watching you in person. And Clemson had theirs, and Eric, you said you covered Louisville's. I feel like from a college football perspective, because there was no NFL scouting combine, the college football schools had another chance to basically put their school on display on ESPN, on NFL Network. These are huge recruiting tools for these big schools like Louisville and Clemson to be able to host a pro day that is covered by all these big networks, and to be able to have prospects like Travis Etienne and like Trevor Lawrence who are having their pro day at Clemson. What was it like to host a pro day this year with no NFL scouting combine? I feel like it just takes the pro day to another level that pro days really haven't been looked at or sought after since this year, really.
I would say that, we do a tremendous job here at Clemson, and, each year that we do our pro day, I think it's first class, obviously with everything that's going on with COVID, we had to make sure, we had to follow, our rules here on campus. And then obviously the NFL has their set of protocols that they have to abide by. So I thought we did a tremendous job of making sure that everybody was safe. And then, like you say, guys just came in here. It's almost like you got that ice cream, and then you want whipped cream and cherry on the top. I think this is the part where you just put the cherry on the top, because to me, the ice cream part is your season, the body of work that you have done, over the course of your 4 years out of school. So teams have all the tape that they need to see. Now it's just giving them just another validation point of, hey, do this guy check off this last box that we need to see? And, sometimes guys do it, sometimes you don't, because it's easy for guys to get out there and look good in shorts and shirts, but then you turn on the tape, it could be totally different. So I think it was a tremendous job that we did here at Clemson for our pro days for our guys. And then it just gives some of those guys that's not the Travis Etienne, not the Trevor Lawrence, it gives some, guys like Amari Rodgers or Cornell Powell, for him to get out there and chance to showcase his skill in front of all these executives. So, it was great to have Trevor come back. I mean, a guy that truly doesn't really have to have a pro day, for him to come back and throw to those guys and to give them opportunity to showcase their skills in front of these executives. That, to me, that just speaks volume of his character. And then the same thing with Travis, for him to come here and have his pro day. I mean, he didn't really truly have to have a pro day. I mean, I think his body of work speaks for itself. But for him to come and have a pro day and have Adam Choice go through it with him, that, to me, that speaks again a volume of his character, because he understands the big picture. It's obviously, it's you want to put your best foot forward, but also let me give opportunity to my brothers as well to showcase their skill set in front of all these executives that's going to be present here at Clemson Pro Day.
Yeah, and that culture's been on full display since I've been covering the ACC the last couple of years. It's amazing when you get on these production calls and you talk with a Trevor Lawrence, and he's the number 1 overall prospect, and he's probably the most cordial with his time and answers of anybody you speak with. You got Dabo Sweeney, who's the, coaching at the time that I covered the game this year, the number 1 coach in the country, and he gives us 45 minutes as opposed to some coaches only give us 20 minutes. It's amazing the selfless culture that y'all have built down there. You mentioned Travis Etienne a couple times, and truly didn't need to do his pro day. He's played at such a high level for so long there. The proof is in the pudding, and you kept making that ice cream analogy. You got to be careful with a former fat boy making those analogies, because you got me a little excited. But tell us why Travis Etienne will be successful at the next level from a former Pro Bowl running back yourself. You can obviously judge running back talent.
Honestly, Eric, I think it's just, he has a total package. He can run between the tackles, he can run outside. And I think by him coming back this year, he really put on display his catching ability out the backfield. So now, that becomes a nightmare matchup, for defense, because now if you split this guy out wide, do you put your linebacker out there? Do you try to leave your corner out there? And then that makes matchups better for other guys. So to me, he has the total package. He has great balance. And then just his his humbleness. I mean, he really don't understand how great he really is, and truly I don't think he does fully grasp like what he truly done in college football. Like the stuff he done, that's not normal. Like that's just not stuff you see each and every day or each and every year. But that just speaks to the volume of the type of person that he is. He's always trying to get better. He always, a team first guy. He wants his teammates to be successful. And, the story I always talk about is the Boston College. We have the trophy that we always present each and every year after the game. And, Travis, obviously, he won that trophy, but, in the locker room, he presented that trophy to our freshman quarterback, DJ, because he felt like DJ earned that trophy. So for him to give that trophy away, that validated for me what type of person he was. So I know his game going to translate. As you know, it's all about just getting to that right system, to that right fit, and then you kind of just let your skill set take over from there. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the draft. I'm anxious to see where all our Clemson guys go, but especially Travis being a former running back.
Yeah, I don't know. All those stories that you just said, it kind of sounds like he's the type of character guy that could fit on a Buffalo Bills team. Now, we've been tracking several mock drafts here in Buffalo, and a lot of the mock drafts think that the position that's going to be available late in the first round is going to be a running back. So I've seen Travis Etienne come across a lot of our mock drafts, as well as Najee Harris. I would have to say, based on Twitter, there's a lot more Travis Etienne fans to Buffalo rather than Najee Harris fans. But we do have a not so much crowded, but we've got some guys in the running backs room, and Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. We just brought Matt Breida on. I don't know, Eric and CJ, you think that Etienne could possibly be a Buffalo Bill? You think he could fit in here somewhere? Because the luxury that you have at number 30, right, is, and because the Bills have been addressing their needs in free agency, and because of the season that they just had, you can go into the draft and you can go into that number 30 pick just taking the best available and not worrying about, hey, we actually really need this position instead of a running back. They have the luxury to be able to draft a running back who could be a Pro Bowler in a couple years.
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll make it easier for CJ, because I don't know that he has the time to follow the Bills like I do at this point. But, I think when you look at it, if you get a guy that can rush the edge that's going to fall to number 30. That's probably a need you need to address, just being the fact that you have both your defensive ends in the final year of their deal in Mario Anderson and Jerry Hughes. So looking at the future, if you get a pass rusher there, then maybe you take the trigger, you pull the trigger there. But other than that, the way Brandon Beane has built this roster is that there's no glaring hole. So you can take a luxury pick, which he would be. You drafted running backs in the third round of the last 2 drafts. So you would think with the amount of assets that they've committed to that position the last 2 years, they would be dead set with that room. But with the way that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane talked after the season about getting the running game going this following season in 2021, that I think that's led a lot of the experts out there to say, hey, a Travis Etienne could be the pick for them because he could be a game changer. And even if you have committed draft picks, and I'll use this as a way to transition to CJ, even at times you've committed draft picks to a position, when you get a game changer at the position, sometimes you got to pull the trigger. The Buffalo Bills had drafted Marshawn Lynch in the first round and had another quality running back in Fred Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the situations within a team, Marshawn wasn't going to come back to Buffalo when his contract was up. You also had Fred Jackson, who was old when he first got on the Bills, much less 5 or 6 years in. I'm kidding. Freddie's a good buddy.
It's like, you calling out Fred?
No, I love Fred. But you got Fred Jackson. Now you can give him a compliment with a guy who would end up being a Pro Bowler, and I believe his second season with the Bills. So you drafted C.J. Spiller at a time when everyone say, holy cow, you got Fred Jackson and Marshawn Lynch. Why would you draft C.J. Spiller? You don't need him. Well, then he becomes a Pro Bowler, and it makes a whole lot more sense. When you look at it, CJ, and you think about adding a running back to a, we'll call it a crowded room, in a situation like that, especially in the NFL, that could raise the level of play from everybody in that room and on offense, though, correct?
Oh, you're totally correct, and you hit it right on. And I remember having that conversation with the GM at the time, Coach Buddy Nixon. I quite frankly asked him, what made you choose me? Because you had a guy, like you said, you had Marshawn Lynch, had been a 1,000-yard rusher. You had Fred Jackson. So what made you choose me at that number 9 pick? And, his exact words were, you was the best player available. And he said, I'm always going to go with the best player available. And I say that is, the Buffalo Bills, if Travis happened to fall to number 30, to me, he's the best player available. Why not do that? And to me, especially the running back position, because you can never have enough good running backs. They almost ain't going to put them in the same category as the quarterbacks, but it's almost right there because, injuries going to happen throughout the season. And you want to make sure that you have enough guys in that room that if one guy goes down, that the play is not going to drop. So to me, if Travis is there at that pick, why not go ahead and make that room better? And I think, to me, from a personality standpoint, I think he fits perfectly into that Bills, that Orchard Park field, just blue collar, hungry, want to win. He fits what Buffalo is looking for. And like you said, it's not like they're looking for a ton because they right there on the edge of making that next leap of, hopefully getting to a Super Bowl. And, to me, I don't think I never had an issue with having enough playmakers. You can never go wrong with having enough playmakers on your roster. So if that type of talent is right there available for you, I think you kind of lean that way. But hey, that's why Coach Sean McDermott and Beane, they get paid what they get paid to make those tough decisions. And I know they'll do what's best for the organization and for that fan base. And I'm excited to see who they choose. And hopefully it is Travis, but you just never know. But that's just one that last piece of advice that Coach Nix always gave me is that, hey, you was the best player available, and I always pick the best player available.
Wow, you might be convincing me to be a Travis Etienne fan now with the number 30 pick that we have in the first round. But I love that connection that you made, Eric, because that's so true. As you look at the roster at the time in 2010 when you got drafted, CJ, it was a crowded running backs room, and it was crowded with some household names: Marshawn Lynch, Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller, and you put all those guys in a room and you think, how can we make this work? And then in 2012, you go and have your Pro Bowl season, you rush for 1,200 yards, you have 460 almost receiving yards, and you average 6 yards per attempt, which any team would be over the moon to have on their roster to see a running back gain 6 yards a carry at the NFL level. But we're talking about the running game in the NFL. How do you guys think that has changed over the last couple of seasons? Eric, you blocked for running backs and of course a quarterback, but now, especially with the Bills and the league that we're seeing and the type of players that we're seeing come out of college football, seems like the league has gone in a lot of ways for a lot of teams. Now, not every single team, but look at the Bills. They're a team that likes to throw the ball because of their wide receivers and because of what Josh Allen offers. So how have you seen the transition in the NFL, maybe from when you guys were on the team together versus now where we're at in 2020 and 2021? Eric, you can start.
Yeah, for throughout my time in Buffalo, the message was often that you can't have a great passing offense in Buffalo because of the wind, because of the cold. So we're going to have to beat people with physicality, running the football and defense. And Brian Daboll last year threw that out the window, played more four wide receiver sets than anybody else in the NFL, just blew the doors off of that philosophy. And the Bills went from 26 in the NFL in offense to top 5 in most statistical categories. So you make that jump, but you still can't get it done in the AFC Championship game. And when Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott got on the mic, a lot of that was blaming the run game. And I think in this day and age of the NFL, with the way that they're not allowing contact at the cornerback position, that the game sets up for throwing the football. And so you need to be able to throw the football, but in the same sense, you have to be able to run the ball efficiently. And when you run the ball efficiently, it's got to be over 4 yards a carry. And when you have a passing offense, it should be around 5 because the defense is in more of a pass rush mode, defend the pass mode. So that's where a lot of their displeasure was with. And, when I was with Buffalo, a lot of times we had at least a 50-50 offense, especially with Chan Gailey when CJ was there, 50-50 run and pass. It was very balanced towards the end of my career when we had Greg Roman running the ship and Anthony Lynn and even Rick Dennis in my final year. There we were running the ball at a really, really high clip, top 5 in the NFL, all 3 years in a row running the football. So we were running it at a very high clip towards the end, but now and that's very friendly on a defense. And when you have a defensive head coach like Rex Ryan and even Sean McDermott in his first year, they love that. They love to be able to control the game. And every defensive coordinator will tell you there's nothing more demoralizing than getting the ball run down your throat. Giving up 40 stinks, but if you get physically manhandled for 60 minutes, that is the worst feeling in the NFL. So while maybe the philosophies have changed, and especially in Orchard Park, and I think it's been proven now that you can have a great passing game in Orchard Park. While I think it's changed, there's still a need, especially for an efficient run game. And I would assume CJ would say similar things.
Yeah. And also, CJ, with that, before you answer, I mean, you look at Clemson, right? Clemson is an offense that is moving on to the NFL because Travis Etienne is moving on and Trevor Lawrence is moving on and Amari Rodgers is moving on. And so you have this offense that you had in Clemson, which Trevor Lawrence has a hell of an arm, but you also have a running back in Travis Etienne who had back-to-back 1,600-yard rushing seasons. So how do you see that fitting into the NFL with how the NFL looks now today, specifically talking about the Buffalo Bills?
I think it's one of those things that you hear around the NFL. It's a copycat league, and I think you're starting to see that the college game is starting to translate over into the NFL. And like you say, these guys that's on this college level, once they get to the NFL, obviously the language will be different, but some of the schemes will still be the same. It's still about running, blocking, and tackling the guys. So, I think that's kind of making that transition easier for these guys now compared to, like Eric said earlier, when, we was there with, Coach Gailey, we knew that, hey, later in the season, we're going to have to run this football because of the wind that's up there in Orchard Park, but now that, Buffalo has a great quarterback in Josh Allen, the guy that has a tremendous big arm that can whip the ball through the wind, probably, hey, we don't have to run it as much as we wanted to, but if we need to run it, we can run it. And I think that's kind of where the Bills at. I think if you can control the game, especially when you're talking about the playoffs is all about controlling the clock, moving, field position. So if you can run the ball effectively, that's a bonus for your offense. And then also it keeps the defense honest, because now if you say you have a guy like Travis, they don't know if he's in the game. Okay, if you're going to hand it to him or you're going to throw it to him out the backfield, a guy that can go make it happen. to me that's the advantage for offensive unit. So like I say, it's the game that changed a little bit, but not a ton. But I just know specifically up there in Orchard Park, I know how that wind is, and obviously, like I said, you got a big arm guy in Josh Allen, but it's nothing better than being able to look your offensive lineman in the eye and let them guys know, hey, y'all keep blocking, let's keep running. I know that was always the thing with Eric. Those guys always done a tremendous job up front of, especially late in the season of blocking it. Hey, and then it was our job as running backs to reward those guys for those blocks, so it wasn't always maybe the 50 and 60-yard runs, but hey, these 5 and these 6, like Eric said, that demoralizes a defense because now you're running the ball at will. And there's nothing more happier as an offensive running back to know that, hey, there's nothing you can do defensively to stop us from running this football at this moment.
Well, there was a lot of times where CJ simply made us look really good up front too. So that goes both ways. And I appreciated him giving us some love. The Bills aren't going to draft Trevor Lawrence. We got our quarterback of the future by all indications, and picking at 30, there's no way he falls to there. But in my time covering the Bills, and I mentioned how mature and gracious he was of his time earlier, but to you, what separates him besides the obvious talent? What separates him from the other quarterbacks in this draft class?
I just think that he just has a fully appreciation of the gifts that he's been given. He understands it. He makes everybody around him better. And that's a special trait to have, especially when you're talking about the quarterback position, because, sometimes those guys can be known as being selfish, but, with Trevor, he wants everybody around him to be successful. And he uplifts their play. They know, hey, if this guy's going out there giving it his all, then I have to take my play up. Prime example for me was always Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I knew even on run plays, you will see Ryan out in front trying to cut a guy. And you normally don't see that in NFL quarterback. But to me personally, that's in the message, man, this guy's giving it everything he got on each and every play. So for me, I need to step my game up. So, when I need to pass pro, I need to make sure that I'm giving him the same as that, respect and the credit that he's doing in the run game. So, and I think that's the same thing with Trevor. You see that, in running game, he's trying to make sure that he's influencing. If it's a bootleg or naked, he's trying to make sure that he's having that linebacker put eyes on him. So he's not taking no plays off. And I think that's kind of what separates him, that he just elevates everybody else's game around him to a whole new level.
And one more quick one on Clemson, because some of the Bills fans aren't going to hear all about Clemson. But one of the reasons that Bills fans love Josh Allen so much and the offensive line and everybody else is Josh Allen's doing a lot of the similar things that Fitzy was doing back in the day, putting his body on the line. I spoke to Ryan Fitzpatrick about it, and Fitz was like, dude, I love Josh Allen, just watching him play and watching him compete and trying to take on linebackers, because I feel like for a while I was the only quarterback trying to do those things. But give Bills fans out there 2 names to watch over the next few years that Clemson's going to put in the top 5. I can think of one. I can think of 2 on the D-line right now at the top of my head, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, I mean, obviously, when you're talking defensive, on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, obviously, Brian Brzee, if everything goes as planned, this guy's going to have the potential to be a top 5, top 10 pick just from his just natural instincts, his skill set. I mean, it's just off the charts. And then, you look at our quarterback, DJ Ungulangle, he's going to have a chance to hopefully be a top 5, top 10 pick when that time comes. Then you look at our receivers. I mean, these guys, man, you got Frank Laston, you got Justin Ross, man, you got Joseph Nagata, man. There's some scary dudes in there. And then the position I coach, the running backs, you got a Will Shipley here, a freshman that's turning heads. You got a Kobe Pace that reminds you so much of a Nick Chubb type. And then you got a Lynn J. Dixon, a guy that's, put him in space, let him try to make guys miss and do his thing. You got a Ches Malusi. So, I mean, there's some guys that's on this roster that you like, if they just stay the course and do the things that they need to do, they're going to have opportunity to play at the next level. But, I mean, there's still so much unknown and unseen. But those would be, I would say Brian Brzee and probably DJ would be the top two names I would say to keep an eye on over the next several years.
Eric, would you agree with that? What were your 2 names that stood out to you?
I agree. And then Miles Murphy,
yes.
Other dude on the defensive line. So I covered them early in the season last year, second game of the year, I think. And I mean, I'm standing down there on the field, and these 2 are freshmen, Brzee and Murphy are freshmen, and they look like NFL defensive linemen at 18-year-olds. I'm like, there's not many dudes in the country like this. It was unbelievable. And they were playing the Citadel, and the Citadel runs the option, and they're cutting legs out. And I was talking to CJ the day before the game. I'm like, man, you need to tell those guys to get them hands out in front of them, keep those guys off their knees, because those two are just big-time prospects. And then, I mean, when you look at Clemson's receiver group, I'm not saying they're all top 10, top 30, first-round draft picks, but when you just look at them in person, it is unbelievable. They're like all cut from the same cloth. They're 6'2" to 6'4". They're all 205 to 220 pounds. They can run like the wind. It's truly unbelievable.
I think we're seeing like a new wave of wide receivers that are starting to come into the NFL. I mean, you look at last year's draft class and it was touted as a very deep wide receiver class in the second round. And it's the same thing this year. You can find some of the exact same guys who can maybe offer even a little bit more than some of the players that were drafted in the first and second round last year. Shoot, we got one later in Gabriel Davis, who is going to be a great player for the Buffalo Bills that played collegiately at UCF. But when I talk about the draft, I mean, you guys were both first round picks. What do you remember from draft night? This is going to be an exciting night, of course, for many men in a couple weeks whose lives are changed when they see that name, their own name, flash across the screen, and when they get that call from their new NFL team. So when you guys think back to when that happened for each of you, what are some of the memories that aren't going to fade away in your mind? CJ, you can go first.
Oh, I mean, the first memory is leaving the hotel and getting in the SUV and heading over to Radio City Hall. And when you get in there and you see Barry Sanders sitting in the back seat in the passenger car. And this is a guy that you idolized growing up. And now you're having a chance to talk to him for like 15, 20 minutes before you get there and kind of ask questions about, what to expect at the next level. How did you take care of your body? What did you do in certain situations? So for me, for one, that would be one of the memories I'd never forget. And then just with my family, it was something that, experience that, we'll cherish for the rest of our lives, going up there on stage, taking the picture as a family picture. And then obviously when you see that 716 number that popped up on my screen, I knew I was going to be a Buffalo Bill, and to have, Chris Jenkins right there taking me through doing different interviews at the time. And then obviously getting to one Bills drive the next day and just meeting the whole organization and seeing the excitement throughout that building. Those are things that you just don't forget. Those are things that just stick to you for the rest of your life. So, I mean, it was a couple things for me, but those are just some of the few that I always remember around this time of the year. And I just always think, man, just how time flies, but those memories, they last forever.
And Eric, what about you? Or what are some of the memories that stick out to you? And also, we can talk about this after, but any draft mishaps, things that you didn't think would happen that actually happened, or, some advice to some of these guys who could be going in the first round?
Well, I'll say this. Back when I got drafted in the first round, they didn't bring that many guys to New York. They would bring 3 or 4 guys. So I was not one of those guys invited. I was just hanging out with my family, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and one of my buddies. Really small crew there because I knew it'd be a high stress day. I knew I wasn't going in the top 15 pick. So it was going to be some waiting around. There would be some anxiety. So I didn't want to be around a huge crew. Well, that night we ended up celebrating pretty good with a big group of people. Well, the next morning I had to fly up to Buffalo. I didn't even own a suit at the time. So, because we weren't at the draft, the Bills had 2 first rounders, neither of them at the draft. Well, we did our big number 1 jersey presentation in Buffalo, and our team president and GM at the time, Russ Brandon, handed us our jerseys, and I'm wearing an untucked button-down shirt and jeans and a hat, and Aaron Maven's in like a 3-piece pinstripe suit, looks like, custom suit, looks incredible. And I look halfway hungover. I got a ball cap on and an untucked shirt. I'm like, that is the most casual anyone's ever been getting their number 1 jersey on the stage. But we always cherish it, that memory, and just kind of shows where I was at that point in my life, where I didn't even own a suit at the time, because we traveled to games in, a windbreaker or whatever the team gave us in college. And it was the last thing on my mind. And there was nothing I was going to get off the rack that would have fit me that next morning anyway. So we flew up to Buffalo. And now those first rounders, they all get their private jet to the team. I was on a non-direct Delta flight up there, and but it was a truly special time.
I love that. I need to dig up that picture. I'm sure you still have it, but we've got to find it somewhere to see what it looked like. But yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Maybe dress up a little bit if you have the clothes to dress up on your first day with your new team. But then you guys get drafted. I know you're drafted a year apart, but then you are on the Buffalo Bills together for a couple of seasons, more than a couple of seasons. CJ, you were with the Bills from 2010 to 2014. So what was it like to play together? I mean, what memories do you guys have during those seasons? And specifically, any funny memories really is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Honestly, that was, Buffalo was really, it fit my personality. Just small town, grew up in a small town, played college ball in a small town. Now I'm playing professional, a dream come true in a small town. But the first day, as soon as you get there, you understand that, hey, this is a blue collar team. They don't care, about, all that fancy stuff. They just want to know, are you coming here to work, and are you going to come here to try to help us win? And, the thing that you love about the Bills fan is, hey, they can talk about you, but other fans, you might not say nothing about Bills players. So I always heard those stories, going to the grocery store, like, hey, we had to set a couple of these opposing fans straight because, yeah, we're not letting nobody else talk about our players. And, the fondest memory, I want to say it might have was 11 or 12 when we got off to that hot streak. And, you always hear, the cliche of, like, you can feel the city buzzing. Like, you truly could feel that city buzzing. Like, it was, had to been such a while since we had to won so many games consecutively like that. And you can truly feel that season, that city buzzing. Obviously, we didn't finish that season the way we wanted to. I don't think we was a mature team at the time. We didn't understand how to bottle that success and what took us to get there. But truly, that was one of the best feelings of my professional career, is just truly just walking around that city and just feeling the buzz because of the hot streak that we was on. But like I said, obviously, we didn't finish. And then just playing with Eric and them, and there was just so much leadership, on that team from guys that hadn't been in the league that long, but guys just trying to step up and just trying to make each and everybody better because just the pride that you took in when you put on that uniform of just wanting to be a winner and just bring so much winning to that fan base because of what they had been through in previous years. So I think it was just one of those things that if you ever have a chance to play in Buffalo, it'd be one of those experiences that you'll never forget because it's so much family oriented. And then with our team, we hung out with each other so much because there's pretty much nothing else there to do. So you have to become better with your teammates. So you get to know your teammates on another personal level. And I think that's kind of what separated us from a lot of the teams around the league because we knew each other on a personal level.
Yeah, that 2011 season was truly one of my favorite memories playing football. That's a hot start to the season. Then Fitz ends up breaking his ribs. Fred breaks his leg. I tear my ACL. We had so many injuries. And, when I look back at that season, it may have been a lack of maturity because we were a very young team at the time, but we also were running through coaches so much. We were always drafting for different schemes. So we could never build that depth to withstand injuries throughout a season. And that's where you're seeing the fruits of the Bills' labor now of sticking with Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane. They're drafting for the same schemes over and over and over, and they were able to build this incredible depth. And they've also done a great job of drafting quality players. And it's funny, CJ, you probably get roasted by Bills fans for saying there's nothing to do in Buffalo. And when we say that, because I've been actually roasted. I was doing a national radio spot and said something similar, but I said more along the lines of like, we get to hang out with each other in Buffalo because we don't live an hour apart from each other. There isn't 35 minutes of traffic to go to someone's house. We'll go hang out at other people's houses. But man, for those out there, and people are realizing it now that the Bills are just attracting all these free agents out there. But it's like, okay, during the season, what all are you going to do besides go to the movies, go out to eat, and hang out with the guys on the team? If you're doing much more than that, you're probably not going to keep your job anyway. So, playing in a city like Miami where there might be more distractions, there's more pro sports teams going on, maybe the NBA season started, whatever it may be, like that stuff's going to distract you. And when our season's over, when we're not working, I can be in where you can end up wherever you want to be. And Also, the fact that training camp isn't 1,000,000 degrees was an absolute blessing because I was a cramper. I could cramp in 70-degree weather. So if I would have went through like a Houston summer camp, I probably would have cramped up every single day.
Yeah, you was definitely a big sweater, E Wood, and like I said, when I say that it's not like taking a shot, but I think that's what makes Buffalo so unique because it makes you get to know your teammate on a whole nother personal level, and then also it lets you connect more with your fans compared to, like you say, a Miami where there's so many distractions. The city is so big, so you really can't connect with your fans. But in Buffalo, you truly can connect with your fans, and when you go out, to a restaurant, it's not like they hound you compared to other places. So I'm not saying that because people ask me all the time, hey, who was your favorite? If you had to pick one place or one fan base that you say was your best, I always say Bills Mafia, because I know that they was going to show up on the home games, and I knew they was going to show up on the away games. So to me, it's one of those things where, yeah, might not be much to do in the city just because of how it's built. But to me, that's what makes the uniqueness of Buffalo, and that's why I think it'll always be a special place for me and for guys that come and play there.
Yeah, I think the word special place, it's becoming way more obvious now that it's a special place to play at because, Eric, you already alluded to this, but the type of free agents that are coming to Buffalo now. I mean, we are signing players that were starters last year as players who are depth players. That wasn't the case a couple years ago with this team. And you're just seeing how good the Bills can get in free agency and how good they're going to get through the draft because the scouting department is so talented at what they do. But one thing that I love that has been a huge difference from this year to last year, we go to the NFL scouting combine last year, and I'm asking some of these prospects in Indy, what do you know about Buffalo? Would you want to play for Buffalo? And there were countless responses of guys saying, I don't know anything about Buffalo. I know it's cold there. And the responses weren't overwhelmingly excited about this Buffalo Bills team. Now, some players did know about Josh Allen, but it's not like before last season he was anything super exciting yet. It was like, yeah, there's potential there, but what's going to happen in year 3? The Bills have this third season with Josh Allen, where they make it to the AFC Championship game. And this year, there's no scouting combine, but we're still doing Zoom interviews with a lot of these prospects. And you ask them about the Buffalo Bills this year, and it is night and day with their responses. These prospects are saying, I would love to play for Buffalo. Josh Allen is going to be an MVP quarterback, or I would love to play in Leslie Frazier's defense. The Bills defense is always a top defense in the NFL. So I think it's really cool to hear the rhetoric in the college football landscape to even change about an NFL team over a season just because the Bills were able to make it to the AFC Championship game. But CJ, watching from afar last year, tuning in when you could, what do you think about this new Buffalo Bills era under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and just what they were able to do last season? I know they fell short losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, but hopefully they can get back there this season and have the guys to beat Patrick Mahomes in that offense.
Oh, I'm excited with Coach McDermott and Beane are doing there. I think they took this organization to a whole new level. And I think Eric, he mentioned it earlier. At beginning, in our playing days, it was always a coaching change. So it wasn't never really true stability. But now you have that stability, and that's what you need when you're trying to build a winning franchise. And they have that there now. And to see, the defense was kind of a little ahead of the offense when they first got there, but now it's kind of the offense kind of caught up. So now they're a balanced team. And I think, like you say, you're just a couple of pieces here and there away from taking that next step and hopefully advancing to the Super Bowl. And whenever you get to, I never experienced going to an AFC Championship game, but I can pretty imagine whenever you get a chance to play there, now you know what the expectation is. Now, how can I be better to make sure that next time we're in this position that we finish it off? Because every year you start over, you hope to get back there, but you got to put the work in. So if you do get back there, what can you do to make sure that you're able to finish it off this year? And I think they have all the pieces and they're getting all the free agents that they need to make sure that, hey, if we do get this opportunity to get back at that stage again, that we finish this thing off the right way.
And Eric, what makes you excited about this year's draft with the possibilities that the Buffalo have with a first round pick, second round, third round, at least right now, anything can happen on draft night once the clock starts ticking and we're into the first selection of the draft with, how people are drafted. We could trade up, we could trade down, we could do anything in this year's draft. But a lot of people have said this is the place that you want to be in. You want to be picking late in the first round, because if you're picking late in the first round, you have a pretty damn good team, and you don't really have a lot of needs because you already have that quarterback. So what's some of the excitement for you, since you cover this team so much, surrounding this year's NFL draft?
Yeah, well, I think when you look at Brandon Beane, you always have to be ready for trades within the draft. I was at the draft 2 years ago when we selected Cody Ford. I was sitting back in the green room waiting to make the pick on stage. Thought I had about 15 picks to go, and they said, nope, you're up next. Let's go, bud. And so you have to be ready with Brandon Beane, because when he identifies a player and he gets a sense that somebody might want to grab him, he'll trade assets away, these draft assets away, to go get a guy that he knows can come in and make an impact. So what's excited me is, with me just covering the Bills for the NFL side, I need to be paying attention the entire time. Maybe not the first 5-6 pick, because Bills aren't really in that quarterback situation to go after one right now. So outside of the top 10, maybe though, watch out for the Buffalo Bills to potentially make a move if they see someone that could get them over their hump. Because when you look at the way this Bills team is built, with Josh Allen still on his rookie contract, and you're able to pay a lot of guys, even with the reduction in the salary cap, you still have a lot of guys you're able to pay because you have the quarterback on a low number. If he identifies somebody that he thinks could truly be a game changer, and I mentioned earlier a pass rusher, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills move up to go get a pass rusher in the draft that he thinks could make an impact on this season to get them over that hump. Because you look at it last year, they're one game away with a 9-0 lead to start the game, away from being in the Super Bowl. And so, that's what excites me. And the draft's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch how it all shakes out for all the other teams. You're looking at teams in the division. What are the Chiefs, who seem to be your main competition in the AFC? Who are they going to go after? They've cut a number of offensive linemen, moving on from their salaries. Do they address the offensive line early in the draft? How are they going to do it? There's so much that we could get on here.
Yeah, and there's so much more that we will continue to get on here, because Eric, I'm sure we're going to have you on a couple weeks for a roundtable where we break all of this down. But CJ, Eric, I don't want to keep you guys much longer. CJ, I know you are probably very busy. I know you said you just wrapped up spring camp, spring practices, but there's still a lot to be done, I'm sure, as the NFL draft is just approaching closer and closer. April 29th. We'll be here soon enough. Just appreciate the time, guys. Appreciate the insight. CJ, again, congrats again with the gig with Clemson. It's awesome to see you back at the school that you made your name at.
Thank you all guys for having me. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this draft. And trust me, I'm gonna be tuned in to see who the Bills pick at that 30th pick. And like I said, I'm always be a Bills fan for the rest of my life, because it truly was a dream come true when they selected me, I guess almost 11 years ago.
Always a pleasure, CJ. Thanks, Maddy, for running the show on this one.
Yeah, of course. Guys, make sure you keep tuned in to Bills Pod Squad, all of our listeners, because like I said, we're going to have a lot of pre-draft episodes coming up the next couple of weeks. So we'll tell you what positions that the Bills should be drafting for, some of our opinions on that, and hear from some draft experts and former players like Eric Wood as we start to set the table for the NFL draft coming up shortly. But thanks, guys, for the time. Appreciate the listeners. Everybody have a great rest of their week.
All right. Thank you, Maddy. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.